to my little friend! You wanna play rough? Okay.
As of last month, Scarface celebrated its 40th anniversary, and it is my absolute favorite gangster movie of all time. I'm not saying it's the best gangster movie of all time, shit, but if you think it's the best, then awesome. But it is my favorite of all time, so let's talk about it. Tony Montana is a Cuban immigrant that migrated to the United States after the Castro regime. After doing some unspeakable things, he's able to get his green card and becomes a dishwasher, but he thinks this life is not good enough for him, so he gets into the life of crime, and through many connections and through sheer will and charisma, he becomes the biggest drug lord in Miami. But then through his hubris, arrogance, narcissism, and fatal drug addiction to cocaine, everything falls apart to him, and then he meets his ultimate demise. Now, I got introduced to Scarface somewhere between elementary school and middle school, but we all heard about Scarface. What can I say about this movie that hasn't been said? It's one of the best gangster movies of all time, and the reason it's one of the best gangster movies of all time is because it accurately shows the rise and fall of somebody and how his ego, arrogance, and everything just falls apart for him. And that's what I loved about this movie. We see the rise of Tony Montana rising up, but then everything just falls apart. Because he gets a couple of lessons in this movie, and we all just wish he took those lessons to heart, such as never get high on your own supply, which he definitely did. He made all the wrong moves with the wrong people, and this movie is just dirty, bloody, and violent as hell, and I love it for it. But of course, I gotta talk about the production of this movie, because this is, for a movie that's made in the 80s, it's one of the most beautiful 80s movies I've ever seen, partially because it takes place in Miami, and Miami is just a beautiful place to begin with, but it also does a good job at highlighting the griminess of Miami, especially when you're dealing with the underground drug world. And plus, all the right people made this movie. You have Brian De Palma, who directed it, Oliver Stone, who wrote the script. The music was done by synth master Giorgio Moroder, who I became a fan of ever since I listened to Daft Punk's Random Access Memories and his contributions to that album, and it makes it a definitive 80s movie. And of course, you got to talk about Al Pacino, which in retrospect is a little bit problematic because you got an Italian white man playing a Cuban person, and rightfully so. In truth, it is a bit problematic, but hey, you can't deny Al Pacino. That is a legendary performance that he gave, and he actually gave some respect to the role by spending some time trying to perfect the accent, trying to perfect all the mannerisms, and even Al Pacino said this is one of his favorite performances. And I just feel like Al Pacino, he did a good job at showing the rise and fall of this character who just didn't have everything handed to him on a silver platter, but through sheer will and determination, he got what he wanted and achieved it, but then his pride just got the best of him. Some other performances include Stephen Bauer, who plays Manny, Tony Montana's best friend. And I like the relationship because of how complex it is, because it's like Tony Montana, he knows how much of a womanizer Manny is, and so when his sister comes into play, he instantly tells him, like, hey, stay away from her. And of course, I gotta talk about his sister, which is a bit problematic, because on one hand, like, hey, look, as a big brother myself, I understand there's nothing wrong with being protective of your little sister, but in Tony Montana's case, it's a little problematic, because it's like, there are times where it's a little incestuous, and I'm not sure if you have all the right intentions when it comes to your sister. And then Michelle Pfeiffer plays Elvira, who ends up being Tony's wife in the movie. But then you also see, like, Tony, he is pursuing her. She's the ultimate trophy wife. But then once they get married, things ain't all sunshine and rainbows. And through her, he kind of realizes that this life, it ain't all cooped up to be, because, like, you're on top and now you just constantly looking over your shoulder. It's hard to stay at the top and everybody's gunning for you. Now, outside of this being a classic 80s movie, you also got to talk about the impact it had on pop culture, because for a long time, there was not one dorm room that did not have the poster of this movie. I mean, look at the poster, like a video game. Everybody wanted to be like Tony Montana. I mean, not into the drug lord, just they wanted his determination. And of course, there's also iconic lines such as,
You gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
Bitch.
What I try to tell you?
Lesbian.
All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. I buried those cockroaches! Who put this thing together? Me! That's who! Who do I trust? Me! Say good night to the bad guy.
Say hello to my little friend!
And this movie had one of the best restorations that I've ever seen, particularly for the sound, because I'm telling you, the Blu-ray that was in that Steelbook that came out, I think it was like, what, 10 years ago? The sound quality of that is just improved, particularly during that last scene, which is one of my favorite scenes of any movie, which is Tony Montana's Last Stand. And when he says, yeah, kind of like when he says,
"Say hello to my little friend! Say hello to my little friend!"
I'm telling you, have the bass jacked up when you watch that scene. There's really not much I can say about this movie that hasn't been said. The movie is iconic in itself. There's a reason this movie is my favorite gangster movie of all time. I ain't saying it's objectively the best, but it's probably the most popular gangster movie that was ever made. And it's my favorite because, to me, it's the definitive rise and fall story of someone that achieved everything he wanted, but through his pride, it all just comes crumbling down. Scarface abso-fucking-lutely gets the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece.